Silicon Valley.
Yeah, and we're actually going to have a couple of basically case studies for this rise of the rest theory. So first we're going to hear from ShearShare co-founders Tye and Courtney Caldwell. It's a Dallas-based company that connects salon owners to hairstylists to fill empty salon chairs on demand. So here is Tye and Courtney Caldwell.
Good morning. Good morning. We are so happy to be here at the 9th Annual Ignition Conference. We want to say a special thanks to Steve Case and our Rise of the Rest family for having us. My name is Dr. Tye Caldwell. Along with my beautiful wife and co-founder, Courtney, we are the creators of ShearShare. What is ShearShare? ShearShare is the first B2B mobile app that connects salon and barbershop owners to stylists to fill out their empty space by the day. So what we do is we allow people to rent that space, but at the end of the day, they're able to make money on that space as well. My quick background on myself. I've been in the beauty industry for 25 years. I've owned a successful award-winning salon for 2 decades. I wrote a best-selling book on how to maintain success in the beauty and style industry, and I've also earned my doctorate in professional barbering cosmetology. Courtney, the rock star that she is, she's been in B2B technology marketing for 2 decades. She ran Oracle's digital demand generation, and she ran P&L over 5 continents. To be honest, ShearShare was just a problem we were just trying to solve for ourselves.
That's right.
Back in 2012, after expanding and rebranding our salon, we found that stylists wasn't looking to rent our space on long-term contracts. Instead, they wanted to rent by the day. So fast forward to manually matching stylists to empty space by the day for 3 years before finding a solution, couldn't find it, and deciding to build out the technology ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. So charting back to 2012, I mean, that's really when we started to notice a few macro trends that were starting to emerge in our industry. The most significant, though, was coming from the labor market itself. The majority of licensed stylists are now independent. Now, that's a shift that's been happening over the last 15 years or so. The self-employed are simply making the choice to build their businesses on their own. In a similar fashion, salon establishments have shifted as well. Today, the vast majority of workspace is what we call in the industry non-employer-based establishments, which simply means that these salons do not have payroll employees. So how do they fill the 40% of salon space that goes unused every day? Well, giving stylists the freedom to choose when and where they want to work actually becomes a win-win for both supply and demand. Stylists and barbers now expect the solopreneur experience, as we call it, where they can provide the best service to their book of business in an environment where they were classically trained. In this way, they can tailor fully the client experience. In their minds, it's about community over competition and access over ownership. At ShearShare, we're already ahead of this revolution. With 50% of the US workforce being a part of the on-demand and gig economy by 2020, we know that the future of beauty is owned by the independent stylist. In the same way that Uber and Lyft serve as that intermediary that sits in between the driver and the passenger, and today are completely revolutionizing an entire logistics and transportation industry, ShearShare will be that, but for beauty. And we believe that accessibility to tools that help maximize the earnings potential of every beauty and barbering professional should be affordable. That's why we built the first on-demand salon and barbershop space rental app. ShearShare sits at the very beginning of the stylist's life cycle and is the first global marketplace that allows licensed cosmetologists and barbers to rent space to work by the day. More than 400 cities and 11 countries later, we're now managing in excess of over $30 million in salon and barbershop workspace assets. And we're doing it all from Texas. Out of the 1.2 million licensed cosmetologists in the US, about 30% are actually from Texas. 4 of the 10 largest cities in the US also sit in Texas and are within driving distance of each other. So it makes it super easy for stylists to build out their clientele in multiple cities. And when it comes to sourcing talent, there's definitely a beehive effect in Texas for biz dev and operations personnel. We may not be the first place you think about when you think about tech, but we definitely over-index when it comes to business development. So now is a very exciting time to be in beauty, and we're not the only ones taking note. There's a huge opportunity that lies at the intersection between beauty and tech. For example, Kim Kimble, celebrity hairstylist to Beyonce, Oprah Winfrey, Nicki Minaj, and a whole host of others, is one of the top innovators in our industry and is now a ShearShare advisor. TD Lowe of Fortify Ventures and Startup Grind is a respected change maker in tech. We are so thrilled to have these two powerhouses join us in leaving a lasting impact on our fellow stylists and owners alike. As the largest provider of on-demand salon and barbershop space rentals worldwide, ShearShare is the greatest engine of jobs and wealth creation for beauty and barbering professionals around the globe. Along with the support from our Rise of the Rest family, we are deconstructing an age-old industry in order to completely reshape it again for a changing workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney and Tye. So up next, we have someone who I actually met when I went on my trip to Chattanooga, and this is FreightWaves founder Craig Fuller. FreightWaves provides real-time freight data across America. It has freight market projections, and it also has some original analysis. It does a lot. So here's Craig Fuller.
I'm excited to be here in New York. I met my wife here, so it's sort of homecoming to us. But my journey in FreightWaves actually started very early in my life. My father started what's now one of the largest trucking companies in the United States. I left that industry about 12 years ago and started a payments company and learned sort of fintech was going through this renaissance and how people make payments and deal with their money was going, a lot of investment capital was pouring into the industry. And so I got my exposure to an industry that was all about disintermediation and using technology to do so. These young, aggressive upstarts were displacing or potentially displacing the way that people get paid and trade stocks and stuff. I sold that business to US Bank, stayed on for 2 years, not really good employee, and decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur again. And one of the things I was doing was consulting with some of these digital apps that are trying to disintermediate the existing trucking marketplace. And the thing that they had in common for them is that they were trying to provide better transparency and information to freight market participants, knowing that we can track pizza, we can track Amazon goods, but it's very difficult to track trucks. But they kept focusing on transparency. And the idea that they were going to build up these digital marketplaces and disintermediate a very old industry was really core to their business model. But what occurred to me, coming from a family that is heavily invested in the industry, is what the participants really needed were better information. They needed to know what's happening in the market. There are 20,000 trucking companies that do more than $5 million in revenue. It's an industry with hundreds of thousands of participants. There's 16,000 freight brokers. It's a massive industry that touches every one of our lives. 70% of the US economy moves by trucks. And yet, the largest company is 2%. So they need information. No single entity has that information. So I got the idea that what has been done in the financial markets with companies like Bloomberg and Reuters could be done in the freight market. And that's how we started FreightWaves, was we've gone out and aggregated about $260 billion of freight transactions. And we provide editorial commentary and analytics for companies that move freight, that buy trucking services, and play as intermediaries in between. It's a massive opportunity. Now, the thing that we didn't appreciate, I love the irony or the significance of being at a digital media event was I never imagined that we would create a media news outlet. But we did that, and now we get about 2 million page views a month, and Meltwater says we get about 400 million impressions in a month. Our news site that's 18 months old gets about 2.5 times as much traffic each month as the largest news sites in freight. Some that are actually one of the oldest publications in America that's still around, we get about 2.5 times the amount of traffic. And the reason we get that is because we are able to combine tribal knowledge that's authentic and backed up with data. Now, it was interesting when Steve came to town, to Chattanooga, I didn't have as much of an appreciation for what that would mean to our business. In Chattanooga, we started at Chattanooga, Steve likes to call it, and rightfully so, it's the Silicon Valley of trucking. It is a place that, as a epicenter, is doing a lot of innovation. But at times, Chattanooga sort of has envy when they look at Silicon Valley as the playbook and say, we need more consumer apps or we need more sort of data businesses. And what Steve did for our business and what Rise of the Rest did for our business was it validated that an outside firm believed in the vision of focusing on what is organic to you. Yeah. And that was really what I think of all the things. We've had a lot of success. Business has been commercial for about 16 months, and we booked $2 million in revenue just last month, November, and that's up from about 500,000 in September and 0 in August of 2017. So we're fast growing. We're able to get venture capital. But what Steve did was quite different, and what Rise of the Rest did for us was quite different, is it validated to our own community about the importance of what we're doing and the fact that communities like Chattanooga should be doubling down on industries that it has a distinct advantage. And I think that's probably the most powerful part of it. The thing that I probably didn't appreciate at the time that I appreciate more is the fact that that was really that outside validation point. So excited to be here. So, thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Many of the most compelling investment opportunities in the next decade will emerge from startups in cities all across America. Revolution's newest fund, the Rise of the Rest Seed Fund, brings together some of America's most iconic and successful entrepreneurs, executives, and investors to invest in startups outside of Silicon Valley and other traditional tech hubs. These Rise of the Rest entrepreneurs are
A place like Chattanooga or Dallas, but kind of key to all of this too is that you're pitching your region as well as your company. You have to kind of pitch this Rise of the Rest theory. So what are some of the challenges that you face being in these locations, and how are you navigating those?
I think for us, people think it's because it's the low cost of doing business. Chattanooga is a very efficient town to do business, cheap to hire, real estate, all cheap. But that we have the benefit of being able to hire in any city in the world because we have the right model. For us, it's access to what I call tribal knowledge. You have this really deep, organic knowledge base of how the industry really works. And technology itself, apps, we buy a lot of off-the-shelf. I mean, look, Mapbox is an example, and I'm not going to plug a specific company, but they have a really good mapping API, and so anybody can do that. And so the apps themselves that's not where the power is. The power is in the knowledge of how an industry operates and the community. And I think you talk about it in your Third Wave book, Steve, is the fact that there is partnerships that can be had by known quantities. And we're able to do that in Chattanooga. The challenge is, again, I referenced it earlier, is that I think cities themselves don't have a really good playbook. Chattanooga did not understand the power of doubling down on trucking, and I think Steve reminded it's an industry that we have a distinct advantage. And so I think that's probably the biggest struggle, was just that before Steve showed up in Chattanooga, freightwaves and trucking was not a destination job per se, where now it is.
And are you seeing some of that in Dallas as well?
Dallas is different. I definitely think that the technology mindset is unlike Silicon Valley, but you definitely get engineers for cheaper, and you get your operations managers for cheaper as well. But one of the things about Dallas and the dynamic of it is that Dallas is very much a corporation state, or city and then state as well, because you have a lot of corporations that come there, which sometimes takes away from the entrepreneurial spirit, but at the same time, they still have it. So at the end of the day, once we realize that we can do something greater and bigger and bring our name to Texas, and also with the industry of beauty, we're one of the biggest states that actually lead the charge for the laws and the bylaws that go along with Texas. So it gives us the opportunity to not only change and educate people, but it gives us the opportunity to lead and give people more jobs and more opportunities in this business.
Yeah. And we've got time for a final question. Steve, so you're someone who has an amazing network of entrepreneurs and investors and even politicians, but how is this going to be a movement beyond yourself?
We have to get other people involved. We hope you'll consider expanding, irrespective of what you're doing, whether you're an investor or maybe you're going to be a mentor or a customer or just a champion or other entrepreneurs in other places doing different kinds of things. I think it's really important. There's some scary data out there that the Pew did some research recently that said 75% of Americans are anxious about the future, fearful about the future. The things that we celebrate when we talk about disruption, they view as likely bad for them, bad for their family, bad for their community, AI, robotics, things like that. We have to give everybody a reason to be optimistic about the future and feel like the future is something that will improve their lives, improve their communities. And it's not only about jobs, but jobs are super important. And so how do you make sure you're backing entrepreneurs everywhere who are creating that hope and opportunity everywhere, so more people in more places can feel like the future is something to look forward to. So it is an investment strategy, but it's also, as you say, more of a movement, educating people that there is opportunity, slowing that brain drain. I know some of you are from other places. You came here or some other city you flew in from because you didn't think there was opportunity where you were. You felt you had to go someplace else. How do we shift that narrative so there's opportunity everywhere and you can choose where you want to be and start and scale a company as opposed to feel like you have to go somewhere else?
Well, we'll be watching what happens next.
All right, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Please welcome Ray Dalio and Henry Blodgett.